Hi, girls, and welcome to another episode of the Bye Bye Girls podcast. I'm here with Becca, but not actually here with Becca. Becca, where are you?
Hi, right now I am in Portland, Oregon. I'm staying with my cousin for a week and a half. So I'm super duper excited, but I'm really even more excited that we figured out how to use this podcast contraption so we can continue to record on my voyage.
We would have pre-recorded it, but we were way too lazy.
Yeah, and really late too.
So this week, though, we're going to be talking about something that I think is pretty interesting. We're going to be talking about sex work. That's right.
Ooh.
The ladies, the men of the night, sometimes the children of the night, unfortunately, but that's an episode for another time. So, Becca, gut reaction. How do you feel about sex work?
I feel like sex work is considered art. I mean, it's like a movie. It's like really raw life that we see, and it's being depicted in a lot of ways. And in this case, life is kind of being depicted in porn. And not only that, but sex work is also meant for pleasure, gives us our daily dose.
So what about not porn? What about things like prostitution?
Prostitution is totally something different than porn. Porn is safe, it's legal, and it's meant for good, as opposed to prostitution, where it's terrible and you're soliciting a woman or a man for sex, for money, and most of the time it's by force, it's against their will, and they don't get anything out of it either.
So would you say that you were for porn and against prostitution then? Is that the stance you're going to take?
I believe that's me. As long as it's legal porn and it's done correctly, then yes, I say pro porn, but no for prostitution.
Okay. So for the sake of having a good argument, let's define sex work. I'm going to define it as a consensual exchange of sexual services for money. And I'm going to say that we're not talking about what would be classified as sex trade. So trading sex for something you need, or using sex as a survival tactic. So we're not talking about sugar daddies or having sex with an ex-boyfriend so that you can stay in his apartment. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking really specifically about people being consensually paid for sexual services. So pornography, prostitution, happy ending massage, alleyway hand job. We're talking about all of those. So in the US, there are about 1 million sex workers currently, and it's estimated to be about a $14 billion industry.
Dang, that's huge. All that really for some good fucking.
People love fucking.
Yeah, they really do. I was reading an article about it too, and just like the whole history of it and how like people just, they like it. And it's just like how they can control, they said it was like how they control the amount of like sex and pleasure and erotica they get in their life. They consider porn as like a controlled environment.
So since you have a very obvious love for porn, why don't you tell me some things about it? I know you did some detailed researching.
Well, yes, because I thought it was really interesting because I was wondering myself, I was like, well, where would porn start? You know what I mean? Like, does it just like pop up one day, hey, we have video, let's just like record people fucking? No, that's not how it happened. It started with naked statues in Austria. And it started with naked statues in Austria and statues that are depicting heterosexual and homosexual sex, oral sex, and orgies, and all of the above. And it was a very large collection, especially in ancient Pompeii, with just countless images and sculptures of sex, basically.
That's probably why Pompeii got burned to the ground. God was like, shutting this shit down now.
Oh, yeah. He's like the cop of the party.
Has it been long enough to
too
joke
soon,
about
too
Pompeii?
Too soon. So then later on, porn turned into like erotic storytelling. So people would be like verbally telling stories about, scandalous sex. And then...
So people have always loved dirty talk.
Oh, yeah. So this is like just like dirty talk. Can you imagine like everyone sitting around a campfire and then someone just like screaming like, you know, some like erotic story and everyone's like, yes, 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 and then like everyone's just like jacking themselves off like in a big like circle.
They ID to get into the campfire. They're like, this is an R-rated campfire. Get the fuck out of here, baby.
And then what else? The 1440s, it was established in literature, so it was now handwritten storytelling. And it made its huge debut with this good writer, John, Cleland. And he made a story called Fanny Hill. And it was just countless, and it was like a storybook about bisexuality, group sex, masochism, and very like scandalous things that like people, you know, so it was like a big thing that like this happened. And then the photo.
Yeah, dang, in the 1440s saying like someone's bisexual, it's almost like saying, you know, black people aren't property.
Oh my gosh. It's like
it's really out there.
It's unheard of. So then these stories then turned into photographs in the 1800s when they started it. And then that's around when the term pornography came to be about. So in 1857, pornography was added to the English language. And then about 11 years later, the first film with, dare I say it, a kiss was shown in a movie.
Did they show ankles too?
Oh my gosh, let's just say yes, for fuck's sake. Yeah, they showed ankles.
No, not ankles.
But it was the first ever film that had like a kiss in it. So that was so huge, and it was like very like frowned upon, very like voodoo, don't like what the fuck kind of thing that happened, seeing a kiss on, you know, on a stage that everyone's seeing. And then at that point, certain like actual pornography called stag films were then considered illegal, and it was basically what we know as like porn today. So the porn is actually illegal, and then that turned into 1951 where there was like X-rated films, which was then followed by the first Playboy magazine like 2 years later. Really, really interesting. So that's basically porn. And then fun factoid, this dude, Simon Lewis, was doing like a study on porn, but he had to abandon it because he needed statistics of single men in their mid-20s who had never seen porn, and he couldn't find anyone for that statistic.
He can use my brother in 5 years if he wants.
Is like porn like a sin? Like, no porn for you, Sonny.
Yeah, he just won't admit he watches it. It drives Ryan insane.
Oh my god. I'm sure he does. All boys fucking do.
I know. He 100% does. So you kind of focus more on the pornography aspect, and I ended up focusing more on prostitution, which we didn't plan for. That just kind of happened. Like, that's where we fell.
Could add like this extra piece into it. You know, we're on like the category of sex and different forms of sex. So I wanted to do something that was maybe a little bit more like familiar, and kind of, because I feel like, you know, sex and like pornography is kind of like the main base of everything.
Right, so pornography is something everyone has some sort of experience with, whereas like prostitution is something very few people have experience with.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was your first experience with porn? I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, I do. Oh, this is so crazy. So it was just like, I don't even know how old I was. I think I was 6th grade, and I went to watch TV in my parents' room. I'd go to their room whenever they'd leave the house because they had like a big bed. So I'd go in their room and watch TV, and then there was one day I turned it on, and fucking porn was on.
Your parents watch porn together? No, it's probably just your dad.
I think it was just my dad. I'm not gonna fucking lie. I turned it on.
Twist. It was your mom.
Right. And it was Playboy, and it was so fucking weird. And then at first, I didn't like my little, like, you know, 6th grade ass didn't know what the fuck it was. So then I was watching it, and I was like, what? And I kind of like turned it off at first, but then I was like more curious, so I like watched it again, and I was like, what the heck? Like, literally, like, went right over my head. I had no idea what it was. And then it kind of turned into like a ritual. Whenever my parents would leave the house, I'd go and watch like porn because I was just so like confused, and I wanted to like understand it better. So that's about it.
I think I've kind of told you about my porn journey before.
Probably.
My journey of self-discovery, if you will. Grew up in a Mormon household, really, really strict, internet strict, all the stricts. I don't think my parents watch anything like that. So there was never any stumbling, when I was a kid. There was nothing to stumble across. So my first experience came when I had submitted some questions on Yahoo Answers, looking for an answer about sexuality and whatnot, because everything was blocked on our home computers. So it was really the only way, I got sex education, because Yahoo Answers was not blocked on our computers, but people could still answer my R-rated questions.
What kind of things did you ask?
I would ask, how the hell do I masturbate? What is it?
Really?
All this stuff. Yeah, but I actually got some, really good answers. I got some links to whatever, and at that point, I think you gave me your old iPod Touch. And,
the one I covered in duct tape and, called it a case?
Yeah, I think that one. Yeah. But anyway, you gave me your old iPod Touch, and I used it to look up, erotica, and really go to town, or try to. It took me a while to figure out exactly what I was doing, but that was pretty much my first experience with porn was for porn's purpose.
Oh my gosh.
But it took me a long time to get into videos because they just felt kind of weird.
Yeah.
Delving, They're really I love it now.
But it was too hardcore for you.
It was too hardcore for my 14-year-old I'm gonna wait till I'm married brain.
That was quite a phase. When you said that, when you were telling me you wanted to wait until marriage, I was like, nah, she's not.
I waited a year. That's how long that lasted. 1 year.
But that was a cute dream because you wanted your first time to be all sensual and stuff, and I thought it was adorable.
Yeah, and then I just kind of had a fuck it moment and went and did it with someone, and that was that. Anyway, the glory of my first time aside. So I like porn. Porn's good.
Yeah.
I totally think porn is a worthwhile industry. I think it helps people get their rocks off. I think it gives us more to fantasize about, because fantasy is something we kind of lose when we get older. We don't have as many goals. Mm-hmm. I'm always asking Ryan, what's your fantasy? What's the one thing you could try with a woman if you could? Because I'll do it with you. And there's nothing there. It's just, meanwhile, I'm I want to do this and this and this and this. I saw this in this video, which sounds pretty cool. I have a bucket list.
So why do you think that people enjoy watching porn so much?
The easy answer is, I actually did a thing with Ryan back in December where we both agreed to not watch porn for a month. And we did it, and we still masturbated and everything, but we weren't watching videos. And first of all, it took a lot longer. I found that my sex life was a lot more satisfying, so I will give ultra conservatives that bone. Mm-hmm. But all in all, I think porn speeds up the process. I can just get it done in 5 minutes before bed. Really just knock one off.
So why do you think then that a lot of people in the United States has some weird, voodoo thing against porn? Why do you think that people, are shamed for watching it, or shamed for, doing it? What do you think the problem is here?
America hates sex. That's pretty much the fundamental of it. Canada got the French, England got the whatevers, and we got Protestants. And we're still kind of suffering from that fuckery. Thanks, Europe, for just sending us your bullshit. A lot of people think Protestants came here to practice religious freedom, but really they kind of came here to practice religious freedom of prosecution, or persecution. They came here to practice religious freedom of persecution.
Yeah, and that's the area I was going into when I was thinking about why would it be hated? But then it's kind of a lot of people probably see it from religious aspect, because here compared to other countries where maybe sex is a little bit more normalized, I feel here we have a lot of religions, and a lot of people believe, save yourself till marriage, treat your body like a temple, that stuff's dirty. And I feel that's probably a big reason why, people why porn is frowned upon.
Right. And America is still under this dream, if you will, that marriage should be between one man, one woman. They should lose their virginity to each other on their wedding night, even though nobody holds men to that. And
that's actually so true.
That should be the end, that's it. Like, you never experience anything else, but that's how you get people who cheat, honestly.
Yeah.
That's how you get people who cheat.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think that, like, we as a society can then maybe normalize, like, porn and, like, sex?
We kind of are doing it already, where we're just talking about it all of a sudden. Women are a lot more involved. Our nation as a whole is kind of making this move towards having comprehensive sex education instead of abstinence-only sex education, which, coming from somewhere who did abstinence or no sex education, we had a definite chlamydia problem, as opposed to here, where it's, you know, a non-issue. I have two friends I went to high school with in Idaho who have babies now, which they're really happy and good for them, but that doesn't really happen here in California, where we have a more comprehensive sex education program. But yeah, we're definitely making moves. We're kind of almost ultra sexualizing everything in an effort to desexualize everything. Like, we're just kind of going above and beyond for the time being until people get the fuck used to it.
Oh, you know, I like that. That's a good point. Good outlook on it.
Either that or we're trying to sell stuff.
Going to, like, kids shops, there's, like, you know, sex for days, stupid shit like graphic tees.
Yeah, just, you know, sex is hilarious, it's funny, it's a need, it's something we all kind of have in common for the most part, other than asexual people who are totally real, incredible, but for the most part, sex is like food and water and air to most people. Yeah. It's a need. It's a need.
Agreed.
Let's navigate back to the sex work issue. I think we kind of, which is good. It's good. I think it's a worthwhile conversation. Let's talk about prostitution for a hot sec here, because pornography is kind of legal. Pornography is legal here. It's very normal. People watch porn. It's accepted. But I think kind of the big issue right now for us as a nation is we're dealing with these prostitution issues. People really don't like prostitution. Prostitution is legal in Italy, Israel, New Zealand, Poland, a bunch of places. It's legal in 77 countries total, and limitedly legal in 11, which means that it is technically legal, but they make it really hard for them to practice it. It's legal in parts of Nevada here in the US, but that's it here. Prostitution, so back onto the limitedly legal subject. Prostitution is limitedly legal in the UK and in France, but basically they make these laws that make it pretty impossible for them to gain clients because they're not allowed to advertise. Advertising is a crime. They're also not allowed to work together at all. So groups of 2 or more prostitutes are deemed a brothel and are illegal, which is really unsafe for prostitutes because they use each other to screen clients and decide who is safe and who is unsafe and who's going to stab you in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. And if they work together at all, it basically means that they can't call the police. They can't defend themselves in any way because they're technically breaking the law.
So why do you think then that all these places allow, like, I mean, within small terms, why do you think that they allow prostitution and we don't?
Well, here's the thing, is it's way easier to police something that is legal than it is to police something that is illegal. And we see this a lot in, like, the war on drugs, which is why marijuana is becoming it's becoming legal here in the US slowly. It's going to be federally legal here coming up pretty soon. But it's a lot easier to monitor something when it's legal. It's hard to trace something that's illegal. So here in the US, we try and peg prostitutes on anything and everything. We're one of those places in the world where not only is it a crime to prostitute yourself, but it's a crime to hire a prostitute or have anything to do with a prostitute. You can go to jail for being involved in their business in any way. In New York, it's actually illegal to be carrying condoms. You can be arrested for carrying condoms because it's technically seen as evidence that you are doing sex work. Isn't that crazy?
How about it's evidence that I fuck?
It's evidence that I don't want syphilis. Thanks.
Oh my gosh.
Bye.
And you know what? Like, if I'm a prostitute, at least I'm being safe. Like,
And New York of all places.
Yeah.
Like everyone fucks in New York. Everyone's liberal in New York. Like you carrying them. They're fine.
Oh my gosh.
But it's one of those throwaway laws, you know, like you can't carry ice cream in your back pocket on a Sunday, wherever that's a law, like Florida or some shit. Um, so why do you disagree with sex work? Why don't you like it?
Well, I think it's just, for me, morally, this is a really, like, personal thing. I personally think that it's wrong. And that's the first thing that comes to mind, is that it's wrong. You shouldn't... Oh, wait, are you saying sex work?
No, you keep talking. Prostitution, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so sorry. So, yeah, I think it's wrong. You shouldn't be taking a person and getting profit off something that should be so personal, you know? I feel like sex is, like, supposed to be personal, or at least, like, 100% consensual, but you're just turning around something that's supposed to be so natural into something so evil and dirty, and I just think I hate it. And that's more of, like, a personal reason, not, like, you know,
right.
like, a more educational answer.
So here's a hypothetical situation for you.
Mm-hmm.
Assume you're a person, you are a person, but assume you're a person still, and you make the decision that you want to go into prostitution to help ends meet during college. It's a decision you make for yourself. You don't have a pimp, you're not being trafficked, anything like that. You personally, maybe, I know you have a religious background, but maybe you don't in the case. You don't really think that highly of sex. You're screening your clients. You do kind of have somewhat of a relationship with your clients. A lot of prostitutes do. People go to prostitutes for emotional needs as well as physical ones. Assume all of this best case prostitution scenario. How do you feel then?
So morally, I still believe that shouldn't be right. I hear about college students who try to make ends meet with sex, and in that case, they go into porn because it's safe, it's legal. So at this point, this is now going into what could be deemed as unsafe, and the porn industry is it's just safe, and it's better to go there. I still disagree with turning to prostitution.
Right, but let me bring up this little idea. If you go into pornography, there's a video of it that can be used against you in the future.
And it's, like, not supposed to be there.
Future jobs, if you go into porn, you're paid for it to be there. It's supposed to be there, but...
Oh, you mean for porn? I thought you meant, like, prostitution, the video's there.
No, prostitution, there's no video. That's... assuming that's why you make the choice. You go, okay, I'm going to just do prostitution.
I understand.
There's no video, because teachers, all the time you hear about it on the news, get fired because they find out, the school district finds out they used to do pornography and there's a video of it. Mm-hmm. But nobody can prove you used to do prostitution necessarily.
That's true. I mean, to each his own, you know? I mean, they're not infringing on my life. If that's how they feel like they need to get their shit done, that's none of my business. I mean, I personally don't like it, and I think that there are better ways, but if that's what they deem their last resort, by all means, go for it. I don't want to know about it. It's none of my business. You do you, boo.
So let's move away from morally then and talk about legally. So now you've kind of adopted this stance of, well, it doesn't really affect me. I wouldn't do it. I don't agree with it. Mm-hmm. Do you think it should be legal so that they can have whatever protections that we can give them through labor laws and being able to screen clients and everything?
Mm-hmm. So taking my morals, my personal beliefs aside, I believe that it could very well be legal. And I think that there could easily be, just like the porn industry, I feel like with prostitution, there could be an easy, clean way of getting it done. You know, we have organizations, they have to be checked, their clients have to be checked for any diseases. I feel like maybe names should stay anonymous. It needs to be in safe areas, you know? So I feel like it can be done and it can be controlled, definitely.
So why do you think it isn't already legal?
Maybe because the people, or like the government or whoever wants to run it, could be seeing it as maybe too big of a task, perhaps. Or maybe they can see it as potentially getting dirty and out of hand very quickly, so they'd rather just ignore the subject and not even go into that area. I'm not entirely sure.
Right. So in Nevada, where it is legal, in the rural areas where it's legal, the prostitutes have to undergo pretty much rigorous STD testing, like once a month or every couple weeks, I forget.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, they have to use protection. They have a ton of rules set in place
Mm-hmm.
for this thing, and they actually have really low STD rates there.
Yeah, I mean, I bet, because that's how porn's done too. They have to take testing weekly or bi-weekly or something like that. And
so here's another tidbit. Here's another tidbit to give you. The STD, the like parts per million of STDs in prostitutes in Nevada are lower than the STD rates in porn stars in California.
Really?
Mm-hmm. They're lower.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because I guess you're doing something ultra unsafe, so maybe.
Do you think that could be because it's more regulated there and maybe more strict, and that's why they're more careful? Or do you think it's just a coincidence? Or do you just think maybe they're trying to be more careful considering they know they're in a more like risque business?
I think part of it is that it's really regulated and they're more careful. I also think part of it is that prostitutes tend to see regular clients. So these clients, they know, they screen the clients. A lot of times in the porn industry, you'll have one or two sketchy porn stars who just ruin it for everybody and pass shit around in that month span before they get tested again, or they do something unsafe. Also, a lot of porn stars don't use protection. I mean, when's the last time you saw porn where, like, someone was wearing a condom?
Yeah, like never. Sometimes with gay men, but it's only like at first to kind of get on in there.
Yeah, which is super unsafe and horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, I think this should be legal for their own safety. It's easier to police. It really doesn't hurt anybody other than them and the people who are hiring them, in which case I don't fucking give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go hire a prostitute, you're signing on to take those risks. If you want to be a prostitute, you're signing on to take those risks. But at least we can help them out. At least we can make it safer for everybody involved. But I think a lot of the reason why it's not legal is because who are prostitutes? They're minority groups. So a lot of prostitutes are lesbian, gay, bisexual. There's a lot of transgendered prostitutes out there. People of color, a lot of immigrants. They come into this country and they're like, well, fuck, what do I do until I get a job? What do I do? Prostitution, you know.
Do you think there are any like statistics on this? We should definitely try to find the statistics and see. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit. There's not solid statistics because we can't count people we don't know 100% exist. We can count the people who get into the police system, but that's about it.
That's true.
But yeah, most of them are LGBT, people of color, immigrants, low income from low income communities a lot of the time, poor people. So I know I asked you to look into SESTA a little bit. Did you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did. Really interesting too. I was telling my cousin about SESTA, and then she was like, hey, while you're on the subject of, legal policies, let me show you this, what's her name? Kelly something. Megyn Kelly had an interview with a girl, and basically her being trafficked ended in a new bill that got signed. So I watched it, and then I realized that it was. So basically this girl is one of the reasons why SESTA was made. But tell me about it, because
I think that girl you're talking about is actually standing behind Trump when he signs the bill in the video. She's the black woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's crying and they're all clapping and whatever.
Yes.
So basically SESTA stands for the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, and it was signed into law by Trump in February of this year. It's aimed to basically help stop human trafficking, sex trafficking, but the issue with it is that not only does it harms sex trafficking, but it harms sex workers far more. Basically innocent people these are their jobs.
Hurt them in what way?
it makes it really unsafe for them to conduct business. So basically what the act does is it makes websites responsible for any advertisements on their site for sex work, sex trafficking, whatever that the users post. So previously, the website couldn't be held accountable for what the third-party users were putting on it. That's what's kept the internet such a free place, a place to express, a place to pretty much do and be and fuck who you want. It's been a huge aid in free speech, essentially, the internet. But this kind of makes it so it can't be. It makes it so the websites are responsible for what their users say. In response to this being passed, Craigslist actually took down their personal ads section, which is basically like a Tinder if you're 50 and don't know how to use your phone. So they took that down. A lot of other websites are really worried about it because basically the website can get sued by the government if it's found that someone's advertising themselves or someone else on it. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a really kind of weird act. So it's basically aims that sex traffickers can't use the internet to advertise their product, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So you at least believe that it's coming from a good place, but it isn't done correctly. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, and I think ultimately it might make it harder for law enforcement to track down sex traffickers. Because if you think about it, you know, they post an ad online for, I got this girl, what's up? You want to buy her? And they can track that ad down. Now they can't. There's nothing to track. They're not posting online anymore. They're going to be significantly harder to find. Maybe it'll manifest in some other way. They'll advertise in some other space, or maybe they'll be able to move less, again, product, if you will. But I'm not really sure how that's going to pan out.
So what would you recommend then to do to help? Because obviously you don't think that this bill is done correctly, so what would you change about it, but would also help stop enabling sex traffickers?
Honestly, I'd scrap this one. I don't think this works. I think it really harms sex workers because what it does is it makes it so sex workers can't communicate online and screen their clients. Previously, it's sex workers all talk to each other, first of all. When you're hiring a prostitute, a lot of times, especially professional prostitutes, you have to supply references. So you have to say, I've worked with this person and this person in the past. And then that prostitute will contact those prostitutes and they'll talk about it and they'll be like, yeah, he's fine. He's a good guy. He's not going to stab you to death in your apartment. All good. But now they can't do that. So they're going in blind to meet these people or to have these people come to their homes and their apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really, really dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for fuck's sake, I kind of have similar views, but I do have my little person inside who wants to fight you. Because I think that despite this law stopping sex ads on websites by preventing the identification and discovery of the slaves of the sex, it allows less promotion for these women and less business for these traffickers. So it's kind of, because that's the whole reason why they're there, right? They're there to get more promotion and get more people. So it's going to be a lot harder for them. So I think that not only it's meant to save these women and help these women in a way to where they can't be exploited, but I think it's also trying to take away one other foundation that these traffickers have, another tool that they have to continue on this act that they do. So with that said, I also very much do not approve of these women being exploited online against their will. So I think this is coming more from to stop or at least slow them down in their work. I understand your point of view, absolutely, because you're right. How are you supposed to track them down? Because there have been many stories of people who have saved these women from these ads, but at the same time, if they break down this wall, they have to work even harder to get business, and more likely for them to just say, like, fuck it, like, you know, it's not worth it, it's too hard, we're not doing good business, because they don't have these ads anymore.
Right. So from my point of view, this doesn't stop them from enlisting women into sex trafficking. It doesn't stop them from gathering women, kidnapping women, whatever the fuck they do. It makes it so they move their product slightly slower. Women, please know, people, that I'm talking about women. I'm just saying product for ease of grammar. And I think it makes it harder for them to move the product. I don't think that means that they're going to have less women, less product. I don't think it means that they're going to sell less women and less product. I think it's going to take them slightly longer to.
And I think that's what they aim at. They aim to make it harder for them to do what they want to do.
Right, but ultimately they're A, saving nobody, B, making it harder to save people, and C, harming a whole other group of people in the process.
Mm-hmm. Well, fun fact though, you know that the girl who helped in with this act, when she, you know, got taken, her mom and everyone looking for her didn't even know that she was on a website until after she was even found. So in a lot of cases, the websites don't really help anyways. It was after she was discovered and back home that they saw, oh wait, there's this really shitty website and my daughter's on it. So it basically also shows that, you know, maybe it's not one of the factors, because these people found their daughter and, you know, what was online didn't help. It didn't appear. It was only brought up later on.
Right. There's so much shit on the internet that how can you possibly find it all? And people can come up with codes and secret nonsense and whatever. Like, the internet is such a vast place. You can't police the internet. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
All it does is take freedom away from people who need it for their health, deserve it, have done nothing wrong. You really can't, like, these sex traffickers, they don't give a fuck. They're already sex trafficking. Like, they're not gonna go, oh no, they passed a law meaning that I can't advertise on the internet. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna go to jail. That's not their mindset. They're gonna go, all right, let's come up with a secret code, everybody, or, you know, I've gotta put them in the newspaper now again, whatever. But, you know, someone who's already breaking laws to this extent, it's not going to deter them. It's just making it really unsafe for prostitutes to do their job. Courtesans, if you will. I don't know. That's my point of view. I understand where they're coming from, and she's coming from a place of a lot of pain and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
Trump's trying to get public favor. And
Yeah, that was also on it. I was watching a video and it said that it was saying, you know, everyone thinks Trump isn't doing anything, but then he signed this act, you know, to try to put a good foot in the door for all those, like, non-believers in Trump. It was really interesting.
yeah, we're coming up here on re-election in, what now, like 2 years? Yeah, so about a year from now, we're going to start seeing people throwing their names into the pit.
That's crazy.
I know.
Off-topic fun fact, though, I want to bring this up, because I always think about this whenever the election's coming up. Stupid side note, we can get rid of it later if it's too stupid, but I watched something on the news, or maybe it was on YouTube, and it was of a man who said that he's from the year like 2035 or something like that, and he got caught, you know, back here because he got sent back in time, and he's like, I can prove that I'm from the future. Donald Trump will win the election in 2020. And that was like his only justification. Like, that was his only way of proving that he was stuck and he was like from the future. And it's like, dude, like, there have been countless presidents who have been elected for 2 terms. Like, you're fucking stupid. Even if he gets reelected, no one's gonna believe you.
My dad said that his approval rating right now is like 51%, which is higher than Obama's ever was. I didn't fact check that.
Really?
Because it's my dad, so knowing him, it's probably true, because otherwise he wouldn't throw it in my fucking face, but...
Back on track. All right, bye-bye, girls. I think that's going to round that up for today. I think we had some pretty solid conversation, yeah?
I think so, too. I think it was a good one. Good episode.
It was really good. It was better than I definitely expected. everyone feel free to follow us and keep up with us on our Instagram, Bye Bye Girls, our YouTube channel, our website. On our website, we post blogs and about us if you want to know more about your two Bye Girls.
I do have an article up about SESTA if you want to know a little bit more. It doesn't go too much more in depth, but there's a little more there. Also, please send us your questions, topics, sex, life, love, culture, whatever. Just fill out that form on our homepage. You can put anonymous in the name box if you want, and we won't say your name. But we'll answer your question on here. If you want us to say your name, we'll say your first name. But
yeah, absolutely. We hope to see you next week. We're gonna have great things coming for you, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening.
Bye bye, girls.
Bye bye, girls.